Hello everyone, Charles Watts here. Welcome back to Inside Arsenal and welcome to the start of another week. It is Monday. I hope the week is going well wherever you're watching or listening to this around the world. It's not been too difficult to start, as we know Mondays can always be. It's the week of Arsenal's final game of the US tour over in Philadelphia. The team have now flown from LA to Philadelphia to get ready for that game against Liverpool, which is in the early hours of Thursday morning UK time. Arsenal, of course, going in on the back of the draw against Bournemouth and the win against Manchester United. They'd love to finish a tour in style with a victory over Arne Slot's Liverpool, of course, on Thursday. So all preparations now gearing up to that game. Could we see Ricardo Calafiori make his debut in that game? Quite potentially so. Still waiting for official confirmation of that deal from Arsenal, but don't think we're going to have to wait too much longer for that. He is heading over to the United States as well to link up with his new teammate. So that's going to be very exciting to see him finally in an Arsenal shirt. We're going to talk about Ethan Nwaneri in today's show and the decision facing Mikel Arteta. I think Nwaneri has certainly made that decision, I would say, a little bit easier with his performances on this tour so far. We're going to talk about Gabriel Jesus as well, in terms of the confidence that he could be feeling, not just in terms of his football, but more importantly, in terms of his body as well, which could be a big boost to Arsenal. Got lots of questions and reaction from you guys as well to get stuck into. So we'll start with Ethan, shall we? Who has just been one of the stars of this tour so far. Really impressive performances against Bournemouth and against Manchester United. Started both games. Really hope he starts the Liverpool game as well. The whole build-up to this tournament, I was saying, the thing I was most intrigued by and most wanting to see was how Nwaneri was going to basically stand up and grasp the opportunity that he was always going to get on this tour because some of the senior players were away. And he has grasped it with both hands, with the manner of his performances, the manner he's carried himself, the confidence he plays with on the pitch, all of that. You know, I've said it before, he just looks like he belongs in this environment. And that's such a massive thing. There's plenty of times you watch a youngster who will come in and they'll do a few sort of eye-catching things. You're like, wow, he's got a lot of talent, but he still stands out a little bit as a youngster on the pitch. That is not the case when it comes to Ethan. He just looks like he belongs in this environment. He looks like he's a first-team player already. I think the most important thing as well is you can see just how much the senior players trust him. They will give him the ball. Even when he's under pressure, they will give him the ball because they completely trust that he's going to be able to protect that ball under pressure and either beat his man or work the ball onto someone else. And that's the key thing. Arteta spoke about it when he brought him on for that game against West Ham last season, didn't he? When he was saying the players were telling him on the bench to bring him on, and that was because they trust him. They absolutely trust him when he's in possession, and I think that's been really, really evident in this in these couple of games. Mikel was speaking about him after the game against United, and he said, "Look, it's always in the hands of the players. So show what you can do, show that ambition, that determination, that quality, and things will happen naturally." Tomorrow, he's going to train with us again. If he continues to play like that, he's going to play some minutes on Wednesday for sure. He's basically saying, look, it's down to Ethan here. If Ethan takes this opportunity, if he shows me that he's ready, then I'm going to play him. I'm going to give him minutes. And so far, he's been true to that word, and I'm sure he will be on Thursday morning as well. But the big thing facing Arteta, I think, decision-wise, is what do you do when the Premier League starts, when the actual business end starts of this? You know, it's all well and good playing these youngsters in pre-season, but when there's 3 points on the line, when you know you can't afford to be slipping up basically at all in the Premier League because of who you're going up against and what your demands are and what your ambitions are for the Premier League, you can't really slip up. You know, even a draw feels like a defeat nowadays. And when you've got so many big games, especially at the start of the season, when you're going out to Man City, when you're going to Tottenham, when you're going to Villa, those sort of games, are you going to play Ethan Nwaneri in any of those games? Not starting. I can't imagine he'll be straight into the starting 11 at the start of the season, no matter how well he's played in this tour. But are you going to be prepared to use him off the bench? That's something we've not seen Arteta do with youngsters. He's been prepared to put them on the bench lots of times, but he's not really ever been prepared to bring them on, even in games when we're all sitting there thinking, this game's done and dusted. Arsenal are 2-0 up, 3-0 up. Give a youngster a go. And he's not done that yet. And so that's the decision that's going to be facing Mikel now, is in his head, is he ready to play in the Premier League? I think the answer is yes, 100%. I think he has to. This has to be the season that Ethan starts getting fairly regular minutes. And again, I'm not saying absolute, he's not saying he's in the starting 11, but he needs regular minutes. He needs to be shown this season that you're good enough, you're ready, you're going to get some minutes. and you're going to be able to develop here, because the last thing he needs is to be sitting on the bench and not developing at his age now when he's clearly ready. So it's a big decision for Mikel Arteta to make, but I do think that Ethan's performances on this tour have probably made that decision just a little bit easier, and that's a good thing for Mikel Arteta. I mean, you guys, there's just a couple here I've brought up on screen if you're watching on YouTube, if you can see, but so many more people have got in touch talking about Ethan in the comments over the last couple of videos I've done. Naru there says, Nwaneri, that's the name. Arteta needs to integrate him into the first team this season. He would be our left 8 solution. Andrew says, if Nwaneri was somewhere in Europe, we would be struggling to buy him at a release clause of 120, just like João Neves of Benfica, just because he would have been trusted and given more game time to shine. Arteta should be trusting his youth. When we're 3-0 up, 70 minutes, youngsters should come in. I do agree with that last bit. I've said it many times. I do think he's missed some opportunities to bring youngsters on in those sort of game state situations when they are dead and buried. You know, what's the point of bringing on a Cedric Suarez, for example, in some games last season, when you could have given Raul Walter the chance, even if you didn't really believe, which I imagine Arteta did, that he was going to make it at Arsenal. Could you still give an opportunity? You probably could. And I think that's where, as I just said, he needs to improve a little bit. And I think it'll be really key for Nwaneri. I do also think, though, that when you say that Nwaneri would have been given more time to shine in Europe, maybe that is the case, but I think the leagues and the level of the leagues are slightly different there. And you've got to remember, Arteta did play Nwaneri when he was 15. He did play him last season as well. So it's not like he hasn't played him. He has brought him in. And I think it's, I look at it's probably the way when you look at Nwaneri, you look at Phil Foden and how Pep managed Foden. And again, at the time, City fans were crying out for him to play more. You know, top level journalists in the country were demanding that Pep plays him more, and Pep just took his time, took all the questions, batted him away, and just like, look, I'm doing it in my own time. I'm going to get him ready. And you've got to look at it now and think he managed that period for such a talented player perfectly. I'm not saying Nwaneri is the same as Phil Foden. Everyone's got different, everyone's different. Everyone's development can be handled differently. But I think long term, when you look at how Pep handled Foden's development, it was very, very good. And Foden benefited from that massively. And I do look at what's going to happen, hopefully, with Nwaneri and Arsenal. And I wonder if Mikel's going to sort of look back at that time with Foden when he was there, of course, at the start and saw firsthand what Pep did with him. If that's going to be, a sort of blueprint for how he manages Nwaneri's blueprint and his minutes into senior football. On to Gabriel Jesus now, and we spoke about these comments yesterday briefly about what Jesus said after the game. I thought they were interesting. I just wanted to go over them a little bit more in today's show. He said after the United game, my last pre-season was not good because I was feeling my knee, so I had to have surgery and missed all of pre-season. I was trying to force it during that pre-season, but in the end I couldn't and had to have surgery. That was a little bit difficult to come back from, but this season is different. I could enjoy my holidays and I trained a lot. I was focused to come back well and do a good pre-season. Now I'm in different shape and I can play football again. Just those last few words there, and now I can play football again for a top level. I mean, just for any footballer, if you've got an injury, say you're playing a Sunday team, like we all have done, and you've got your knees hurting, your ankles hurting, you go on the pitch, you try and play through it, but you know it's hurting, you can't run properly. So you're sort of playing at 50, 60%. And you think that's what Jesus was doing last season. He had no confidence in his body. He had no confidence in that knee because he knew, even after the surgery in pre-season when he came back, he had to manage that knee injury and Arsenal had to manage it. They couldn't train that much. When he did play, he knew it was going to hurt and he knew it could potentially leave him out of the next game. When you've got that in your mind, it is very hard to be able to play at your best. And I think that has to be taken into context when you look at what Gabriel Jesus did last season. I think just his body shape as well. You could see now in that picture and what we've seen from him so far in pre-season, he looks different physically than he did last season. He just looks so much fit and healthier. And I think that's going to be such a crucial thing for Jesus going into this season. If, and it is proper fingers crossed type territory when it comes to Jesus. But if this knee holds up and it's fine, which it appears to be right now, because he's gone through loads of training. He did it himself before he came and joined up with the squad. He's doing it over in the States and everything appears to be fine right now. If that holds up and he has full confidence in his body, then we're going to see so much of a different Gabriel Jesus this season. I think we're already starting to see it, I think, from what we've seen in pre-season. And that's going to be massively beneficial to Arsenal, I think. I thought they were really interesting comments and they just shone a little bit of a light into some of the issues I think we saw from Gabriel Jesus last season. He just wasn't confident in himself that his body was going to be able to cope with what he wanted it to do. And I think right now he feels a lot more confident that his knee can handle it. And we're going to see a better, sharper, stronger Jesus because of that. And if we do, then that's going to be huge for Arsenal, because Jesus, when he's fit, is one hell of a player. Another player who is, coming back from a horrible injury, worse than Jesus, is obviously Jurrien. He's been a real plus point so far of pre-season. Really good. Mikel was speaking about him after the United game. He said now he's getting the rhythm, because obviously he missed a lot of football in the last year or so. We've asked him to play in different position than we had in mind due to the numbers and the players we have at the moment. But I'm really happy. Just look at him, his pressing, his leadership, composure. He's like a new signing for us and a big addition to the team. And I know that phrase annoys a lot of people when it's not actually a new signing, but it kind of is in Timber's case. And I've said it before, and I know it does annoy a lot of people, but he is, he was a new signing, and then Arsenal haven't been able to play him. So he signed and Arsenal haven't played him. So he is basically a new signing this season, even though he's been here a year, because we can actually play him now after signing him for big money. And he's looked great, and that's been a real plus point. And, he's been playing at centre-back, as Arteta said. He tried him in a different position. We saw him last pre-season. He was playing really, really well at left-back. Naturally, he's a right-back anyway. So, how he fits into this team, especially once Calafiori's here and confirmed and has settled into the team, you would imagine he's a long-term sort of thinking for the left-back role that Arsenal needed to sort out. And so where Timber fits in exactly, it's all up in the air a little bit at the moment. And Arteta has got so much strength and depth to pick from when it comes to the defenders. But it's a great position for Arsenal to be in. And when you look at Manchester City and the way they accumulated top defenders who are all pretty much at the same level, and how that helped them reach the heights that they've hit in recent years, then you can probably see why Arteta's doing it. But Timber's been a real plus point for me. Just the way he plays, like Mikel says, his composure, his pressing, his leadership. He just looks like a player now who, kind of similar to Jesus, has a lot of confidence in his body. And we know how good he is. We saw that last season before the injury. The only fear was this time is, can he come back and get to that sort of level again? And what we're seeing so far suggests that he can. And that's just a fabulous thing for Arsenal. And it's going to be really interesting, as I said, to see exactly where he figures and where he fits in the sort of long-term planning for this defence that I think we're going to see emerge as the season goes on. On some of your questions and comments now, Noah here has got in touch and says, Martinelli was on fire against United. He looks to be the same form as he was in 2022-23. He's kept his pace and gotten even stronger. ESR's imminent departure solidifies Gabby as our top left winger in terms of talent and age. Adding Calafiori means our left side can be as lethal as the right. I'm excited at the prospect of how dangerous we are in attacking, yet rock solid in our defence. What are your thoughts? Yeah, I really am excited. I'm really excited by that left-hand side as well, because, for all of Gabby's largely underwhelming season last season, especially when it comes to goals and assists and final third type moments, that has to be put into context of what that left-hand side was for Arsenal. It was a bit of a mess. It was mix and match. It was one player playing 1 week in at left back, another one playing at left 8, and then it was all switching around. Martinelli had no continuity in terms of the players and the partnerships that he was working with down that left-hand side. If that's going to be fixed this season, if we're going to see Calafiori as the sort of, the proper left-back option, and then, I don't know, Marino, if he comes on, or Nwaneri, I don't know. It's probably looking, to me, once Calafiori signed, I expect him to step up their attempts of signing Mikel Marino. And he, you would imagine, would be that left-sided 8 option with Declan Rice playing as a 6 if Marino was to sign. And if that is the case, and suddenly you're going to have a lot more continuity down that side, and you would think that Martinelli is going to benefit from that. And what we saw against United, the pace, the explosiveness of when he got on the ball, how direct he was in and around the final third as well, the finish for the goal, that only bodes well, because Martinelli's just such a good player, such an exciting talent. And, I'm fully expecting that he could have a season like he did in 2022-23 again, rather than last season, when it's fair to say, even he will admit, he underperformed slightly when it comes to output in the final third. Lewis says, with a lot of people beginning to worry slightly about incomings this transfer window, by the sounds of it, in my mind, still possibly the most important piece of work is yet to be done and seems to have gone a bit quiet. That is tying down Arteta to a new contract. Has there been any update on this at all? Great to see the young Gunners taking their chance to shine in pre-season. Keep up the good work, Charles. Thank you, Lewis. There hasn't really been an update of it. Well, certainly not as far as I'm aware. at the moment, talks are still ongoing. Again, every time I've asked about it, it's all like, yeah, it's all fine. You know, everyone's happy. Everyone trusts each other. Doesn't appear like there's going to be any issue. You wouldn't have thought there's going to be an issue, but you know, I agree, Lewis. I think it is 100% the most important piece of business Arsenal can do this summer. You don't want it to drag on into the season. Certainly not a long time into the season, because that's only going to bring uncertainty, which is the last thing you want when you're trying to win the Champions League and win the Premier League. And you know, everyone will just want to know, look, is the manager staying? It's such a crucial piece of business. And I'm still of the opinion that it's just going to get done naturally, because everyone is happy with how things are going at Arsenal. Arteta's happy, the board are happy, the fans are happy, the players are happy. So why wouldn't it continue? It just makes perfect sense that it will continue. So I'm not at the concern stage yet, Lewis. I still think it's going to happen, and all the messages are that everyone's calm about the situation. But I agree, until that signature is on the paper and everyone's pictured smiling together, then it is going to be something that just continues to rumble on in the background until it gets done. Lots of you get in touch to talk about Salah-Eddine. Nassar at the top says Salah is a serious gem. He really impressed during these games. His contract needs to be renewed, and I think he's ready for the first team squad along with Ethan. Another loan won't be good for Salah, in my opinion. He's ready now. Needs to be trusted. Nwaneri looked good and played well in both games. MLS also played well during the preseason game. Those three stood out for me. Needs to be trusted to express themselves in the first team squad by Arteta. Killer Buddha says, to think we almost sold Salah for a pittance last season. Yeah, very nearly went to Hull, but injuries stopped that. I always thought it was a mistake. He was always looked to be part technically, but needs experience. Uncle Azar is at says, well, was at the game and Salah was so good. I hope he gets minutes this season. Nwaneri's good as well, but Salah was so impressive. And Wag says Salah-Eddine looks a smart footballer. I think he'll turn into a proper footballer. Lots of you as well, who I didn't include in this, saying the same sort of things. I think it'll be interesting. I mean, Salah has looked good. There's no doubt about it. I'm still a bit skeptical. I fully expect Ethan's going to be in and around the first team next season. I'm not sure about Salah-Eddine, despite these good performances in preseason. That's just a hunch. That's not based on any information I have. It didn't appear he was anywhere near the sort of first team picture. And I would be surprised when everyone comes back and is fit. Is he going to get the sort of minutes he needs to continue to develop? I think Ethan will, but I'm not. Ethan and Salah kind of play in similar positions as well. They can play, anywhere basically across midfield. They can even play out wide if needed. So you kind of got two very young players competing almost for the same spot. And I think Ethan will certainly be ahead of Salah in that regard. I think Arsenal should certainly be working on trying to renew his contract. But I still think the best thing for him is probably renew a contract and then go out on loan and continue to develop there, rather than, because you don't want him playing under 21s football. And I just don't think if he stays around in the senior squad, I just don't think he's going to get enough minutes at his age that he needs right now to continue to develop. So my hunch is still go out on loan, but obviously he does need to get his contract renewed at the same time as that. But thank you so much for everyone getting in touch. I really do appreciate it. As always, I'll be back tomorrow to do it all over again. You want to get included in that show, send in your comments, your questions and opinions, and I'll pull them together as always and get them included towards the end of tomorrow's show. Until then, everyone, have a fantastic start to your week. I'll speak to you very, very soon. Goodbye.